Hey, welcome to my Autumn Equinox 2020 astrological overview. Well, it doesn't feel much like autumn here, I can tell you, because you can probably see the steam rising from me, and in Malta it tends to get very humid and hot, sticky hot at this time of year. So my classes are already steaming up. Anyway, I wanted to do this video to explain to you a little bit about the autumn equinox. I'm actually recording this the day before it's going to go out or be published. Now, the autumn equinox doesn't actually happen until 3:30 tomorrow afternoon, Central European time, which when I started doing the research on this, I actually found it quite interesting because it's actually, it's seen as the point in time when the sun moves from Virgo into the sign of Libra. So, and that is what is actually happening at 3:30 on Tuesday, the 22nd of September. I also thought it might be interesting for you to know what equinox actually means, and what does solstice mean, and why are they different? Well, equinox actually comes from the word equal, and it's because the equator of our planet actually is it's kind of cutting the sun in half, if you like. So it means that the angle of the planet to the sun is that the equator of planet Earth is angled like that, so that the sun is equally split to the northern and southern hemisphere. And the autumn equinox is where our planet starts to tip towards the north, so the North Pole up here moves further away from the sun, so to speak. I mean, the equator's still there, obviously that doesn't move. And obviously the sun then is bringing spring and summer to the southern hemisphere. So basically it means that daytime and nighttime have an equal length. And I don't know about you guys, but I've really noticed how in the morning it's still quite dark when I wake up, and it's just and like for tonight, I'm recording this on the 21st, and it's actually 1848 Central European time in Malta, and I saw that sunset tonight is actually at 1900. So the sky, although I'm facing east, or behind me is east, may have some nice interesting colours in the backdrop. So now the solstice, by contrast, so it's like our calendar is cut into 4 different quarters. So you have the 2 equinoxes, which are the spring and the autumn equinox, and then you have the winter and the summer solstice. And solstice is when we have either the longest day and the shortest night, or the shortest night and longest day. And as we know, that is in December, around about the 21st, and in the summer, it's around about June the 21st. Now, interestingly, the autumn equinox, the date is never exactly exact, and that's because our calendar that we use of 365 days, in fact, the Earth rotates and moves around the sun. It's an odd number. It goes at something like 365.25 of a day, which is why obviously we get leap years. So that is why, for instance, this year, the autumn equinox is on September the 22nd in Central Europe. It may be different for the Pacific and the eastern coast of America. So for us here in Central Europe, it's at 3:30 in the afternoon. And obviously we know all about the ancient times when we had the sun was angled to come through and shine on the altar of ancient temples. We've got Stonehenge, and here in Malta we have the wonderful temples of Hajarim and Menidra, to name just a couple. And they certainly were designed so that they caught that autumn equinox light, sunlight at dawn coming through, which will probably be tomorrow morning here in Malta. There'll also be a little bit of it also the following morning on the 23rd. So just a little bit about the kind of mechanics, if you like, of the equinox. But what I wanted to talk about was the astrology between now and the solstice on December the 21st, because I thought, as this has been such a roller coaster time for us in 2020, it might be quite useful to just have a few kind of key points that we are aware of over the next few months. So the astrology that I've organised today is basically to look at a general overview of what is happening between now, or rather the September the 22nd, and December the 21st, when we have the midwinter solstice. So what I found quite interesting when I did this research is that the equinox actually happens, as I say, when the sun moves into Libra. So the sun moves into the sign of Libra, which is all about relating. And you'll see in my October horoscopes, which are also going to be posted on the 22nd. So you'll find those on YouTube as well tomorrow. And it is about relating. Libra is an air sign. It's also cardinal. And so, as the world is on this kind of constant roller coaster of emotions and, damage, limitation to businesses, to people's health, to wealth, to the world economy, it's a really challenging time. And it was interesting because when I look at this chart, and I'm just doing it as a point in time for tomorrow at 3:30 in the afternoon, and that's setting the scene for me for the next 2.5 months, it does give us quite a cardinal, and what I mean by cardinal, it's a cardinal, cardinal is proactive, it's initiative, it initiates. And so there's something about the next couple of months or so that we are really going to feel we want to get things changed. We want to move things along. We do not want to see lockdowns throughout the world like we had at the beginning of the year or in the middle of the year. And as we see, as of today, when I watch the news today, and cases are going extraordinarily high all over the place, which is, particularly concerning. But we were kind of warned about it. And in a sense, the astrology has warned about it. And one of the things that I think is so important for the next 2 or 3 months is for us to really be mindful of how we treat each other. Libra, and we're in the sign of Libra from tomorrow until the sun moves into Scorpio, which will be it actually moves in November, I think. Yes. And so we've got, it really is about trying to be kinder to each other, to stop competing, to stop trying to attack everybody's views. We're all entitled to our own views. And you know what? We're all trying to sort this out in the best way for us at this time, because that's all we can do. So with the astrology and bearing that in mind, if we look through October, now October is quite interesting because things will start to shift in October because Pluto is going direct on the 4th. Here's my big boy in Capricorn. And once he starts going direct, that is going to shift the energy, this heavy Capricorn energy we've had. The chart I've done for the autumn equinox has a Capricorn ascendant. So we have Jupiter, Pluto and Saturn, these big boys, these big heavyweights, and they're all around the ascendant. The ascendant is about what goes out there in the world, how we show ourselves to the world over the next kind of like 2.5 months. So it's just like it's underlining the importance to what have we learned from the last few months of going through what we've been going through on our planet. Have we actually honoured and respected what, if you like, the planet is trying to tell us, what the universe is trying to tell us about how we treat the planet, how we treat each other? So during this season of Libra, Libra is about balance. Libra is about relating. Libra is about fairness. And perhaps if we can all be mindful to some extent and keep that in our sort of consciousness, our conscious awareness, to be kind to each other. You know, on social media, I see so much attacking going on and people being critical of each other and of their views. And yes, of course, we are entitled to free speech, but there's free speech and there's also just downright nasty attacking, which goes on. And it's like attacking for the sake of attacking. And I would like to suggest that this comes from a place of fear. And what we have to do if we're going to get through the next few months of this particular quarter of the year, I think it's very much about moving from a position of fear into a position of knowing that if we go with the flow, knowing that if we respect what we're being told by the universe, by the divine, that if we respect that, if we respect each other, Libra, that actually things can start to balance out a bit. Yes, we're all going to have to, in a sense, police ourselves and do what is comfortable for us in these very difficult times, but not at the cost of harming others. That I do feel very strongly about. Now, looking at October's astrology, Pluto going direct is going to shift the energy. Pluto brings transformation. So if we can transform in this particular way of, transforming how we relate to each other, how super cool will that be? But we've also got a Mercury retrograde in October, from the 14th of October until the 3rd of November. Now, people always get worried about Mercury retrograde, but please don't. You know, sometimes when we're slowed down for a reason. If we're being slowed down in communication, if we're being slowed down in travel, if we're being slowed down in whatever that involves papers, contracts, and all that nature of area of communication, then trust it. Because actually, Mercury also is giving us the opportunity to make sure that we can address these things in the way that's best for us, for humanity, to move forward in a really positive and creative way. We have a new moon in Libra, so we have the new moon in Libra on the 16th. And with all these lunations next month, I will be doing detailed live videos about them, so I'm not going to go into them in big detail now. But we have 2 full moons in October. We have one on the 1st in Aries, and then we have another full moon on Halloween. How spooky is that? How beautiful is that? And that's in Taurus on the 31st of October. And that one is going to be a super interesting one, and do try and watch my full moon live video for that, because it's conjunct Uranus, the planet of shock, upsets, surprise, and God knows what else. So that could be super interesting. But let's move on to November, because, you know, the sun will be in Scorpio in November. Mars, thankfully, starts to go direct again in November. It's been going retrograde in Aries since, I think it was since July or beginnings of September. I think it was, no, it's September. It started to go retrograde. And it's been causing mayhem with our big boys in Capricorn, with Pluto, Jupiter and Saturn. And it will, of course, go back in its forward motion to make the same degrees with these planets. So this is a bit like the layers of an onion. You can, if you note down in your kind of calendar when certain things have been happening for you, then if you look at the degrees of when these planets start to go over those points again, you can look at what were they trying to tell me then? Can I do it differently this time? Because it's like, again, we're given these opportunities. So let's also, yes, now we have also an incredibly big event in November, which again I will probably do a live video for, because November is a really super packed month, because we'll have Jupiter and Pluto conjunct in Capricorn, and they will be exactly conjunct from the they are conjunct from the 8th of November till the 13th. So now what does this mean? Well, Pluto transforms, okay? Jupiter expands, but Jupiter can expand positively or negatively. So what does that mean? Well, I think we're going to have to wait and see what's going on around that time, but it is going to be significant. And it's at the 22 degree that we had way back in January, when we had the famous Saturn-Pluto conjunction in Capricorn. So what this kind of means is that here we are again, as we go into winter, with this, you know, I do think there will probably be quite an explosion, if you like, of the virus, as people will get very frustrated about having to go through this all again. I think we are a generation, you know, most of us up until the age of about probably 70, 75, have never really lived through a huge trauma in Europe, not since the end of the World War. And I think that, you know, as we live through this piece of history, it's very difficult for the majority to cope with the fact that we are having these restrictions put upon us, and how tough that is to cope with. So I do feel there's going to be more unrest. There's going to be, you know, that there's just going to be groups of people. Oh, it could get quite tricky, is all I'm going to say. And you see, Saturn also is going to be in a wide conjunction with Jupiter and Pluto. And Saturn gives structure. Saturn is a teacher. Saturn wants to give us boundaries. And of course, each respective government in each respective country is probably going to be giving us winter boundaries with this. And if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, it's going to be giving you summertime boundaries, okay? So it isn't going to be an easy ride. That's why I put the title for this video of The Roller Coaster Continues. But it's always how we individually manage it. But let's just move on in November, because on the 30th of November, we have a penumbral lunar eclipse, and that's going to be in Gemini at 8 degrees. If you do know where 8 degrees is in your chart, and if you have any significant planets at that degree, then this eclipse will affect you. And if you want to know more, I will be talking about it when I do that particular full moon eclipse on the 30th. Now, let's move just quickly into December, because time is moving on, when the sun will be in Sagittarius. And basically, December is when we're going to start seeing a shift. Now, is it a shift for good, or is it just going to be more challenging? Or is it a shift where we accept the limitations that Saturn has put on us and find another way, another route to cope with all of this, because I have a feeling it's going to be that. And on the 14th, we have a solar eclipse. Okay, so we have a solar eclipse on the 14th at 23 degrees of Sagittarius. So that is also going to be a significant time, which I will go into in detail when I do the live for that solar eclipse. And what I also want to mention about December is that we then have what has been sort of, we've been waiting for in the astrological world, the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction just before they leave Capricorn, and that's going to be roughly on the 15th, 16th, 17th of December. And you have to think, Saturn is like the opposite energy of Jupiter. Jupiter expands. Jupiter can expand it positively or negatively, whereas Saturn kind of contracts. It pulls in. It gives boundaries. It holds us back. So how that is going to affect us, I'm going to go into detail, obviously, as we get closer to that point, because that brings us up to the solstice on the 21st, 22nd of December, which is the end of this particular kind of quadrant, if you like, of this from the autumn equinox to the winter solstice. Now, just as a kind of final overview of what I've been talking about, I do feel that the next couple of months are still going to be more of the same. It's going to be maybe not quite as challenging in the same way, because we've kind of got used to it, and maybe we'll be more accepting of it, which will not be a bad thing, because if we resist it, it'll be harder for us. If we go with it, it will be easier for us, and that goes with so many things in life. And I think, you know, we have also, of course, got the US elections coming in the middle of all of this. And that's going to be interesting, because that's when it's just the US election, I think, is the 3rd of November. And that's just before, and we'll be in the energy then of the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction in Capricorn. So that's going to be super interesting. But I do feel we are going in 2020, we are living through a historical event. We are living through a time of great change. Countries, governments, the way they are running themselves is never actually going to be the same again. I think they're all going to have to go back and really redefine how they work in the world, how they come across, and how they, in a sense, govern people. This year is a big wake-up call to the planet. We cannot continue with the kind of rape, if you like, of the planet, of its natural resources. It will come back and bite us big time in the bum. And we have to also, I think, on a personal level, look at our part in that and how we change individually our behaviour, so that, in a sense, and we do that by voting, of course, but also we do that by how we actually address all the issues that governments have got to address, and how we can do this for quality of life rather than how much we may have in the bank account or how much the big boys have in their bank accounts. And I think it is about somehow striving towards more equality. And it doesn't mean we can't enjoy the abundance that the universe wants us to have. Not at all. We can have, we can have what we need if we go about it in the right way. And it's finding that way. That, I feel, is one of the most important things that 2020 is trying to tell us, to really find the best way forward with what happens through the whole of the 2020s, because that's what we're moving into. This is the 2020s, and that we need to make sure that we leave a really good legacy for our descendants. Okay, now on that note, I'm going to finish. Thank you so much for tuning in to watch this, and I'd like to say, if you would like to if you would like to have a live one-to-one with me for either astrology or life coaching, you will see my website address. It's either down here or it's here. I'm not quite sure. And also there's an arrow that's just underneath the video, and that says show more, and the website address will be in there as well. So, and I would love to see you for an astrology session or a life coaching session, and also maybe for you to help you make sense for you personally for what's been happening for this year, because none of us are having an easy ride, and that is just for certain. So God bless. Thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you again next time. Thanks for now. Bye.